on 590 KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Front Stretch, brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome to it. We are glad to be with you again on this beautiful Sunday morning, and it is absolutely beautiful. The sun is shining right in our eyes, getting us warmed up after a bit of a crisp night, and this is the Front Stretch. It's presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. We are live from Kansas Speedway, and I got to tell you guys, if you're not here, you are going to miss out on one heck of a race. We saw it yesterday during the nationwide race. Beautiful temperatures, beautiful weather, and great racing. I hate to say it, but finally some great racing in Kansas. We've had some tough racing last couple of years, but I think this repave has helped.
I think there's a lot of elements that came into the play here. You know, the repave helped. I think yesterday's, the winds were down. The temperatures were perfect. Everybody's engine temperatures were perfect. I mean, we were hearing a lot of 205s, 210s, 215s on the temperatures after the race and during practice sessions and whatnot. I mean, all in all, if you're a race team, you can't ask for a better weekend than what we got going on down here at Kansas Speedway.
I'm Dan Taylor, and that is Buddy Ray. Andrew, thank you for joining us again this morning. A train derailment could not stop you.
You know what? Nothing could stop me. It was a late night last night with the train derail where we were at, but you know what? I'm trying to figure out how to get Danica Patrick's car on the racetrack tonight.
Well, we're going to work on it. So, coming up in turn 4, we've got predictions for what we see for today's Cup race. Plus, we're going to play a couple of sound bites. We were in the interview room yesterday after the nationwide race and got an opportunity to have a conversation with Joey Logano and Austin Dillon. So we'll play that back from you. In turn 3. Buddy, Andrew, and I were all down at Lakeside Speedway on Friday night, and then Buddy and I were here for this race on Saturday. So, Andrew, you stayed at Lakeside and got an inside scoop on what happened at Lakeside, so we'll talk about that in turn 3. Turn 2, we walked around the infield, we walked around outside, and we talked to a lot of fans, and we posed one question, and we'd like to see your responses to this too. If there was one thing you could change in the NASCAR rulebook for 2013, what would it be? And we had some pretty good responses. We'll talk about that in turn 2. Before we get to all of that, let's talk about turn 1, which is presented by the Auto Connection in Lincoln, 21st and P Street. Triple-digit temperatures, I'm reading old copy already. Sub-zero temperatures, let's try that, are just around the corner. And your cooling is just as important during the wintertime as it is during the summertime. Make sure your car is in peak working condition. Get to Kevin and all the great techs at Auto Connection in Lincoln, 21st and P Street. Get your car serviced. Make sure it's in great running condition so you don't get broke down on the side of the road. 402-477-8200 is the number to call. You can also go online, autorepairlincolnne.com. Earlier in the year, probably about a month and a half ago, we sat down with Eric Darnell, driver of the number 40 Turner Motorsports, the Motorsports Group nationwide car. And, buddy, you guys have a close connection. Joe's Karting actually sponsored them when they came through nationwide, the nationwide race at Iowa Speedway.
That's right. So
we got to sit down with Eric and talk to him about his thoughts on his incident that happened. It was a Friday morning in the nationwide practice. So let's play that real quick. This is Eric Darnell talking about his day in his practice.
It's just a case of there being an inexperienced driver on the racetrack. I'm not exactly sure how he got approved to come running a mile and a half, especially a repaved one as fast as this place is. And he was kind of all over the racetrack. I guess some other guys had problems with him earlier in the day. I had not been around him up until that point. And he was in the middle of the track. I committed to the bottom, and he decided he was coming down pit road when I was underneath him. So I ended up taking out both of our cars. I haven't wrecked a race car all year up to this point, and to get one in practice was pretty frustrating.
And that was referring to he got tangled up with the 46 car, and a lot of damage on the side of that number 40 Motorsports Group car. It ruined his day, basically. And this is a track with the repave, the new tires, the new everything. Practice was critical.
Practice was critical, and it's unfortunate Eric got into some trouble with an inexperienced driver, but last night after the nationwide race, when you looked at the results, Eric came in 17th. And you and I were talking at the hotel room, what an admirable effort.
He really, he didn't have the best car. They didn't have the opportunity during the practice sessions because they were working on the car, fixing it. They didn't have time to tweak it to make sure he had the right handling and everything. So, a very admirable effort to get his car corrected and at least get himself a top 20 finish and ends up walking away in 15th. We also got a chance to talk to Eric with his limited time on the track about the repave, what he felt like the cars were doing. And Buddy, you asked him about the track and the Goodyear, how the tire they brought, and this is what he had to say.
It's kind of a very fine line right now. Goodyear's got to walk a fine line, obviously, with the tire that they bring here. If they bring something that's got a lot of grip, cars are going to be going too fast, kind of like what we saw at Michigan earlier this year, and you're going to have a tire come apart. So they had to come here with something that was a little bit harder, a little bit of grip, but it's a very fine line. If you kind of cross that threshold, it's easy to lose the car and spin out. I think you've seen that with a couple guys this weekend. But I think they did a pretty good job with it. Track's really fast, super smooth, probably the smoothest track I've ever been on as far as the repave goes. It's probably, I don't know that you're really going to see a second groove work in too much today and tomorrow for the races. It's probably going to take a couple years of weathering on the asphalt to really see that start to come in a little bit, or a little bit softer tire. But it's cool. I like it. I personally didn't think they needed to repave it. I like the old track the way it was. You kind of turned into a driver's track. The asphalt was getting worn out. You had to drive it, and you got to slip and slide around a little bit. And I won my first ever NASCAR event here. It was a truck race back in 2007. So I like the track the way it was. But I think as the asphalt wears a little bit, this place is going to be just as good.
You give it a year, 2 years, 3 years till it's back to where you like to have it?
I'd say somewhere around there, yeah. They just get some age on the asphalt, maybe start to get some, the bumps, the character that some of these tracks have that have aged asphalt on it, and get a little bit softer tire and get to sliding around a little bit. It'll probably be a couple years, but I could be completely wrong. You might see multiple groove racing in the Cup race tomorrow. Them guys might have to go up there, and it might come in a little bit quicker, but only time will tell.
Let's talk about that race with the Nationwide. Bud, you and I sat there and kind of broke down a lot of what was happening with the race. I think all the drivers in the Nationwide were pleasantly surprised at how quick the track was starting to take on a second groove. It's not there yet, but I think it's laying in a little bit faster than they expected.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, they were really surprised that the second groove was coming in, and, the one thing we heard a lot yesterday was they thought the high line was really going to possibly be a factor today in the race. And, with the speeds, it's funny to hear Eric Darnell talk about a tire with not much grip. And even with the repave, we're talking, a lot faster speeds. He knew that going into today's race that it was going to be faster. But I think the speeds overall just really shocked a lot of people.
And there was some seriously fast speeds. I mean, we saw it up in the Cup Series. The previous record was set by Matt Kenseth in 2005, a lap average speed of 181. Don't quote me on this, but I believe we saw 192
in the Cup, and
in the Nationwide yesterday during the race, they were running 180s, 181s.
Yeah.
So the Nationwide was putting up speeds that were as fast as the Cup when they first came here in 05 with the new track. So we're seeing some incredibly fast speeds. Now Goodyear's done a good job of, when we went to Michigan a few weeks ago, that they brought a tire compound that we were seeing speeds up closer to 200 in the Cup. And so they brought a slightly different compound to keep things a little bit safer, and so it kind of reeled these guys in a little bit. But let's talk about that Nationwide race real quickly. We got a few minutes left in Turn 1, which this is presented by the Auto Connection in Lincoln, 21st and P Street. Get online, autorepairlincolnne.com to schedule and to get more information about getting your car on service. But let's talk about that Nationwide race. We'll break it down a little bit later, but there was an incident between Joey Logano and Ricky Stenhouse that we'll play some interaction between those guys and talk about that. But I tell you what, when that incident happened, they got together early in the race. You counted those two out. They went 2 laps down during repairs and getting their cars right. And at Kansas, you don't come back from 2 laps down.
No, you sure don't. Stenhouse was really looking good. He was powerful. Logano was looking powerful. If you were a betting man, you could almost say that both of them were going to be, the top 5, maybe the top 3 cars. And then when that happened, it just kind of opened up the floodgates for anybody else up there in the top 10 to really take over the lead in the race. And it happened, especially with the 33 car. He actually looked really good yesterday.
Paul Menard should have had that race.
Oh, absolutely.
Sitting in the 33 for Richard Childress Racing. He didn't just lead that race, he dominated. And the only car that could keep up with him, the only car that could keep up with him was the 3 of Austin Dillon. And it just unfortunately came down to what we see at Kansas a lot is fuel mileage. And Paul just had to come in and fuel up. And that's what got Logano and Stenhouse back in contention, was that final caution. I believe it was the 44 and the 4 that brought out that caution.
Yep,
They spun out of turn 4, got together, or out of turn 2, got together, and so it brought out a green-white checkered, which allowed Logano and Stenhouse, who had come in a few laps before to fuel up, to get back on the lead lap and to get up in the front, and that's what ends up getting Ricky Stenhouse the win. I think Kyle Busch just ran out of gas coming right in the middle of 3 and 4, should have had that win.
You know, you mentioned Menard dominated the race, and I think in the last 30 laps, Busch dominated the race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and Menard was right on his bumper, and so was Stenhouse. But that battle between Menard and Busch was what Kansas has been hoping for years.
I think that's what NASCAR's been hoping for in all 3 big series for years, regardless of track. I mean, that was a fun race to watch, and you know, and we'll break it down later. But honestly, who would have thought Stenhouse would have came out the victor in that race?
At the green flag, I think that everyone never counts out Stenhouse. But after that accident, the way his car was tore up and the way Logano's car was tore up, there's no way they were finishing first and third.
No, because you and I were sitting in turn 1, and when we came around, we were pointing out how much damage that Stenhouse had to that car. And NASCAR brought him in a couple of times to keep repairing it because he had so much stuff hanging off of it. that was definitely the will to win there.
Yeah, Stenhouse gets the win. Austin Dillon comes home second. Joey Logano third. Championship point leader Elliott Sadler goes fourth. I want to talk about this real quickly. At one point in time in the race, Elliott Sadler, who walked into this race with a 14-point lead, at one point in time, Stenhouse had retaken the lead by 6 points. Then, after the accident, Stenhouse had fallen back 24 points, but by the time the checkered flag flew, Stenhouse had reduced the lead to now 6. So that just goes to show you how the ebb and flow of a race. Never give up, never quit trying. You gain back these ever so points. If Stenhouse would have given up when he was 24 points behind, 2 laps down, then I think his championship hopes going into the last 3 races of the season were done. But instead, he keeps fighting, keeps clawing, and now he's 6 points behind Sadler.
You know, you mentioned you keep clawing, you keep fighting, you come out with a win, you come out with a top 5 finish. Can you imagine if you're the crew chief or the car owner up there and you're watching your championship points go up and down in the same race? You know, it's one thing to go up and down maybe 3 or 4 points here or there. To go up 6, come back, fall behind by 24, come back. Yeah. I mean, good Lord, that'd drive me to drinking.
Just around the corner, we're going to sit down in turn 2, and we're going to talk about the responses from Logano, Dillon, and find out how they felt their day went, and then we'll talk to the guys about all sorts of different stuff. So that's turn 2 coming up in just a little bit. This is the front stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is the front stretch on AM 590, brought to you by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to the front stretch, live from Kansas Speedway. Tickets still available, kansasspeedway.com. 866-460-RACE is where you can get your tickets. And I got to tell you, we were worried early in the week, even getting here on Friday morning, that it was going to be too cold and it was going to be kind of a miserable conditions. It was on Friday, but Saturday was absolutely beautiful, and today is looking to be the same kind of weather, the same kind of everything. Very little wind. We're going to see mid-70s, maybe get up into the 80s, and we're going to see some awesome racing.
There's just enough breeze. I'm looking over here in the Nationwide area, and there's just barely enough breeze to get the flags to flop. And I mean, it is just absolutely gorgeous. You know, last night I think I told you, Dan, out of all the years I've been racing, yesterday might have been the nicest day I've ever seen, and today might actually trump that, but Friday was ungodly cold.
I joked with several people is if there's one weather condition you can guarantee when you come to Kansas Speedway, it's wind. Well, I've made a fool of myself once again because there's very little wind. It's a breeze, but it's not your normal big win that these drivers have to contend with and the fans have to contend with sitting in the grandstand. So today's the day to get down here and experience Kansas Speedway. If you've been on the fence about it, get to it. And we are broadcasting live. You're welcome to come down and talk to us if you're here in the infield. I know we talked to several fans yesterday throughout the area. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Chicago, they've all come down
Arkansas.
here. Even a couple of guys from Omaha have made their way down, and hopefully they're listening to us, and they'll come over and say hi to us. Danica Patrick, she was nice enough to put her car on display for us. So
Andrew's over here drooling.
Yeah, we pulled some strings. We called Tony. We called all the guys that we could, and well, none of them answered, and so Danica just went ahead and put her car on display.
These guys keep bothering me. I'm just going to put the car in front of their thing.
I think she meant to run us over, but she ran out of gas. But yeah, we're sitting here at Kansas Speedway. If you haven't got your tickets yet today, they are still available. 866-460-RACE, and we want to say thanks to Kelly Hale and to Pat Warren and all the great people at Kansas Speedway that have made this possible for us to come down and set up and do our show live from Kansas Speedway and helping us out to get everything set up and to be the great facility that they are. I know that just because we're media members, we've seen it, that they go above and beyond for their fans too. We were actually on the ride over here, we were pleasantly surprised. I know I've had my truck towed at the College World Series. And when the city of Omaha is nice enough to tow my truck, they impound it, and I get to pay a nice $350 fine to the towing company to get my truck back. Well, we saw some cars and vehicles that were getting towed because they were parked improperly. And I was talking to one of the attendants, and she said, "No, we don't tow people's vehicles to an impound lot. We put it into a lot that is ours. And then when fans come and say, 'Hey, my car was towed,' we say, 'No, it's over here,' and we give them a ride." They simply just move it to the proper lot, which I have never heard of a place doing that before.
No, that is odd, and not to change the subject, but one of the coolest thing about coming to Kansas Speedway is that when we go into the media center, we got the two young ladies at the door, high five and open the doors like we're rock stars or something.
The two nicest ladies that are working here. But yeah, if you haven't had your opportunity to get down here, get down here. It's only a couple hours from the Omaha area. I know places all around here can hear us right now. So get to Kansas Speedway, and we're going to see some awesome racing today. Let's talk about what we saw yesterday. After the race, we were in the interview room and got to hear some sound clips from Joey Logano and Austin Dillon, and they sat down and talked about their day. Logano had this to say about how he felt like his day went for the nationwide race.
If you looked at my car, he would never get to finish third with it. It's destroyed. I mean, glad we got the pole. That was good. And as soon as the race started, I was out front, and I was like, man, this thing is tight. We are in trouble. And the 3 and the 33, they were all faster than me right off the bat. I was just trying to keep that clean air for as long as I can. We came and put 4 on, tried to free it up, and just never can get the front working. We can get the back out, but we can never get the front working for me. Then just trying to hold things off. Got fenced, fixed the car, go down 2 laps, get them back, and then fuel mileage. I know Austin wasn't excited about it, but I was pretty excited about the fuel mileage stuff because I would have finished probably 13th or 14th, and we came home with the 3rd place finish out of that. So we'll take that, considering what we went through today. We definitely weren't running a winning car even beforehand, so we're a little frustrated about that. So we'll go back and see what we did wrong.
And Logano talked about that, the incident with Ricky Stenhouse. So let's talk about that as briefly as we can, but there was a lot that happened there. Early in the race, Stenhouse had some debris on his grill and was trying to do the old move where you pull up behind somebody and let the aero pull it off, the aero force pull it off. Unfortunately, Logano had just gotten loose at that time and had slowed down, and Stenhouse just drove right into Logano and drove him right into the wall and wrecked them both. Now, they didn't spin. Help me remember. I don't believe the caution came out for those.
No, the caution didn't come out, and if I remember right, Logano got up into the wall, and both sides of the car were tore up pretty good on Logano's car. And we were hearing on some of the other shows that Stenhouse hadn't really taken responsibility for that. It was by no means intentional. It was just purely a racing deal, and I have to give Stenhouse credit. I mean, he did come back. Him and his car owner, Jack Roush, did come back, said, it was their fault. It is what it is. The one thing I noticed is it didn't seem like Logano was really that all been out of shape. Not as much as I would have assumed.
I think he was. I mean, after that happened on the pit road, he kind of sent a warning to Stenhouse. Stenhouse was pitted probably about, 5 stalls behind Logano.
Oh, he got pretty close to his crew.
And not the crew, but he got really close to that front of the car, and the crew was off working on the left side of the car, and obviously everyone knows when you pull into pit lane, you're on the right side of the cars. And Logano got noticeably close.
I seen that.
It was kind of like when somebody cuts you off, you keep on their bumper and you just say, hey, listen, that wasn't cool. And then after the race, while Stenhouse was celebrating, Logano kind of came up and tapped him again and said, that wasn't cool what you did. And I think Stenhouse then got to – somebody talked – because during the post-race interview, Stenhouse just didn't really take responsibility for it. And Jack Roush just came during the post-race interview and said, I heard some of Ricky's comments, and I think that was 100% Ricky's fault, and he owes Logano and that crew a bit of an apology. So that was really cool of Jack Roush to do, and to kind of put it out there and just say, hey, listen, you may have been the winner, and you may be probably one of my best nationwide drivers, but you were wrong.
Yeah,
you screwed up there, and you owe it, because I think he cost the 18 team the win. So that was what happened between Stenhouse and Logano, and looked like it had ruined their days, but. They end up having a decent days, obviously really good days, with finishing first for Stenhouse and third for Logano. Now, Austin Dillon was also sitting in the interview room, talked about the summary of his day and how he felt his car reacted and how he felt the track was.
Yeah, it was. I had a good run. Our car was fast all day, racing out there with Paul. It was fun. I wish the outcome would have been a little different there. Not knocking fuel mileage in or nothing, but. It just kind of stunk having to worry about that. And I think that the 33 and myself, and before the 18 got in trouble, he was one of the fastest cars out there. But after that, the 33 and myself were probably the fastest, and we were trading lap times back and forth. And there at the end, we restarted together and tried to get out front, just couldn't make it happen. But didn't work out either way. It was fuel mileage, and my guys made a great call at the end to come down pit road at the start of that caution. I was kind of doubting them at first, but I just saw people falling out of the race like crazy coming to the green flag there, and it worked out perfectly. Came back to second.
With the performance today, Chevrolet has clinched the Bill France Performance Cup, the manufacturer's title, in the Nationwide Series today. If you could speak a little bit about that as well. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. 3 less races left, and Chevy clinched the title, so very cool, and I'm glad to be able to make that last pass to do it.
And that was that was Austin Dillon that was able to clinch that Cup championship, the car owner, or the manufacturer's championship. So good for them, and congratulations to Chevy. Once again, they clinched another championship.
Yesterday was the first time that I had gotten to see a Dillon race, and he was really respectable. He's really good. I mean, I thought he was kind of overhyped as a driver. He was really smooth the whole race, really smooth. Didn't get anybody, hit all of his marks dead on. I mean, really became a fan of this young man, and well-spoken and a great kid. We talked about this several weeks ago. He's going to have some backlash because he is Richard Childress' grandson. But, if you watch him race, you understand that, he's got an advantage being Richard Childress' grandson, but the kid's got talent. Oh, absolutely.
He's been exposed to things that not a lot of other drivers will be exposed to, but that's not all of it. I mean, he doesn't just have a wealth of knowledge. The kid's got talent, and so does his little brother, Ty.
Ty, I didn't really follow a whole lot. I was watching Austin, but... Well,
Ty wasn't here. He's down in the truck race, but yeah.
If I had to compare him to Danica, and some people may hate me for saying this, but if I had to compare him to Danica, I'd take Austin any day of the week.
There seemed to be several cars early in Turn 4 that had issues. Buddy, you actually got to ask the question to Austin and Joey about how they felt Turn 4 was, and this is what they had to say.
After listening to what Austin's car did, I'm pretty sure mine was a lot different because I was plowing and I had to keep going up the racetrack, and the wall comes up really quick there, is what it is. It's really tight on exit of 4. It kind of looks like it's going to keep turning, going up the racetrack, and that wall just sneaks up and bites you pretty quick.
Yeah, my car was real loose in at the beginning, and then I was like late exit. I was already in the gas, and just you lose side force tucked up behind people. I think that's another part. And I saw one wreck right in front of me. Just somebody blew a right front tire. I think the part of that is you get tire heat because there's not a wide entrance, so you can't make that arc that we usually can, and everybody runs in straight. and then you get tight off, so you're just putting a lot of pressure on that tire when you can't arc the corner because the groove's only so wide right now. And it's getting better. Like at the end of the race, I could make a bigger arc, and there's a white dot going into 3. I could center it up or be to the right of it, where earlier, the first few practices, we had to be like right sides below it. So it got better and better as it went. But I think that's where you see the right side damage and stuff, or people blowing right fronts or whatever, and just part of the track right now.
And that was Joey Logano and Austin Dillon's response to Turn 4. We saw a lot of cars have some issues in there, guys. Are we going to see that in the Cup race? Are we going to see that? I kind of feel like the Cup guys got a little bit of a lesson from the Nationwide guys yesterday, and so they're going to take Turn 4 a little bit more cautiously. But also we're hearing from Austin that the groove is starting to widen a little bit.
I think the Cup guys are going to adapt to it better than the Nationwide guys are, just because more experience. But I think the guys that ran the Nationwide race that are racing today are going to be maybe in better shape than the guys that didn't run. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we're going to see today.
I would agree with that.
All right, just around the corner, Turn 3, we sat down at Lakeside on Friday night. Andrew, you stayed on Saturday night to watch the racing. A lot of local guys that we've talked to on the front stretch, and a lot of local Omaha talent that showed these Lakeside boys that we've got some talent up north a little bit. So we'll talk about the results from Lakeside Speedway coming up just around the corner. This is the front stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
You're listening to The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to The Front Stretch, live from Kansas Speedway. Guys, things are starting to happen around here. It may be 8:30 in the morning, but stuff happens quickly at Kansas. We talked about it with Pat Warren a couple of weeks ago when we talked to him on the front stretch. This is a full day of events. I mean, it's not just show up an hour before the race and watch the race.
Oh, no.
There's fan walk, there's pre-race concerts, there's interviews, there's speed TVs out in the front. You can go and watch that stuff live. I mean, it's absolutely an event when you come to these things, and Kansas Speedway does a great job. You can hear the announcements going on right behind us as they're kind of getting the fans ready to go for the day. We are just, T-minus 2.5 hours, 3 hours
Something
away.
like that. I mean, shoot, even at 7:15 this morning, there was the pace cars out on the track giving rides to people.
There's so much stuff you can do as you come to Kansas Speedway, and we talk to a lot of fans about this, and we'll talk about it in Turn 4 about the value you get when you come to a NASCAR race. I think I'll give it. It's expensive, but I think the buck for your bang is definitely there.
Oh, absolutely.
Buck for your bang.
Do that again. The bang for your buck.
That'll be all right. We caught you.
The buck for your bang.
Well, let's take the attention off of me and my inability to talk, which is a great quality to have as a radio host. And Andrew, we got to see some awesome racing at Lakeside Speedway on Friday night, and let's talk about those results, and let's talk about who did what, who looked good, and then Saturday night too. So Friday night we got there, and let's talk about what happened.
I'll tell you that it's not associated with Kansas Speedway, but really everybody there, everybody that works at Lakeside works at Kansas Speedway. So it's kind of a big deal there. And I mean, almost every racer that's there is going to come over here. You see a lot of the Cup guys come over there. Kenny Schrader and Kenny Wallace both ran the modifieds. The first night we were there, Ryan Gustin, I think we're having him on the show maybe in a week or two, dominated the modified field. It was basically a USMTS show. And then our local boy at home, Kyle Burke, I mean, he's our champion at I-80 Speedway. He won the MLRA feature the first night there on Friday night that we saw. Last night, again, Ryan Gustin come from dead last, got up to, I think it was 5th place in that mod feature. Man, I can't think of now who the heck won. Oh, no, Mark Dotson won the feature last night. They call him Fluffy around here. I don't know where he
I
gets
was wondering
Fluffy.
who that was Friday night. I was like, this guy's rolling around here in a mod with the name Fluffy.
He races both cars. He calls himself Fluffy.
That was the 85, right?
The 85 car. He won the mod show last night. And then, are we having a concert right now, right behind us? This is awesome. And then
another benefit of Kansas Speedway.
And then,
a little background music for everybody. A little elevator music, some Matchbox 20,
I
Rob
might start
Thomas.
singing here soon.
Might be Candlebox.
Oh, boy. We may need to go to break if Bud stops singing. So
I'm just waiting for Josh Thompson to come up.
Let's just keep talking dirt track and keep him distracted for a little bit.
And then last night, the final race of the night, we saw Will Vaught picked up to win the MLRA feature. I mean, we did see, like you said, a lot of local guys there Justin Zeitner's been on our show. He was there. Bill Layton Jr. was on our show. He was there. Travis Dickus was supposed to be on our show. He was there. Kyle Burke, of course. I mean, there was a lot of people that we've had there, and they were down here dominating, making the show, and I can't take this serious right now. This is awesome.
Sorry. We're really sorry about this. We apparently didn't get the memo that there was going to be Rob Thomas be playing right behind us. But so that was. Let's keep going on the dirt tracks and try to stay focused, even though he's going to break into a serious chorus in a minute.
Andrew, with Ryan Gustin debuting his late model this weekend at Lakeside Speedway, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what kind of a rating would you give Ryan Gustin debuting in that?
The first day he started 12th, and he trailed all the way back to about 20th, 21st position. And I go, man, he's just not. I couldn't understand why, because when you're an amazing modified racer, you're good in a late model. You're good in everything. The same as if you're in a late model. You see Kyle Burke run both and win both. But then last night he ended up starting about 14th, I think, and he got up to 5th. So I go, we're giving him an 8 right now. He'll be fast. He's got very nice equipment, but he's still a great racer. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, a lot of people I've talked to said that when you come from the modifieds, whether it be an IMCA style A mod, NASCAR mod, USMTS mod, mod's a mod, but when you come from a mod and you step up to the late models, I know the late models are a handful to handle, but typically that transition is really smooth because you go from a skinny tire to the big wide fat tire, and it's like driving a Cadillac around there. I mean, not always that nice, but for the most part, compared to a mod, it's pretty good.
I mean, some guys, one driver, Dylan Smith, really says that. He goes, well, at first I thought it was easy, but then when he started doing it more and more, it was like, oh man, I can win more in the mod than I can actually in the late model, because the competition's actually, I feel, better in a late model, but it's not better by no means. There's good drivers in both classes. We saw that this weekend. I think 7 of the top 10 cars in the mod show didn't even make the show last night.
Let's talk about our local homeboy in the late models, Bill Layton Jr. Kind of broke down what happened Friday night, maybe last night.
We struggled with traction on. I helped him work on the car all week, and he struggled with traction all week and couldn't figure out what was wrong with the car. Like I said, the standout local guy was Kyle Burke. I haven't seen him win a big show in a while, and really, I think he'd had a yellow yesterday. I think he'd have won both features. So I thought that was pretty cool, Kyle, to do that.
Kyle made it look actually really easy in that 30-lap feature Friday night. We were joking last night. We were thinking about going to Lakeside. Do we want to go to Lakeside or we want to watch the Nationwide? And I told Dan I'd like to watch the Nationwide with the tire issue at hand. And we were heading back to the hotel last night. I told Dan, I was like, maybe it's a good thing we didn't go to Lakeside. God knows when Andrew's going to get out of there with a derailed train. Talk a little bit about that. How in the world? I mean, what was...
When you go to Lakeside Speedway, you enter in and you exit. There's only one way in and out of the place, and you have to go across train tracks. Right where those train tracks are, a train derailed yesterday, so they had semis backed up for about an hour, hour and a half. It was like everybody wanted to get out of there real quick. All of a sudden, when that happened, everybody kind of stopped, and it was like happy hour at the bar again. Everybody started drinking and just knew we better start making steaks, and it was actually a good time for that. I mean, it's kind of your little community there. Nobody can screw with you down there. You're kind of stuck.
Well, now, you were a responsible, fine young man last night, and you drank soda and cooked some steaks for the elders, didn't you?
Well, I knew I was supposed to be up early in the morning, so I went to bed around 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
So
you kind of...
8 a.m., right?
Yeah, I haven't slept yet. We're in Kansas, is what you're supposed to do.
Let's talk about that Lakeside Speedway. I was thoroughly impressed with that place. I mean, that was some intense racing. It's a form of racing that I'm not completely used to, because it was there's so much talent level. There wasn't a lot of accidents. There wasn't a lot of cautions. It was just straight up racing.
Well, both nights, the modified features went straight through without a yellow. The first night, the late model feature went straight through, and last night, without the first two, like lap 2 and lap 6, there were yellows in the late model. Without those, it went straight through in all 4 features. And yeah, the talent level, I mean, this is almost as best as you can get. And I mean, the track was in perfect condition. And I mean, there was a lot of time. I mean, Ken Schrader, I think, got 4th yesterday in the mod race yesterday, which was pretty cool. And Kenny Wallace started on the pole, but he kind of trailed backwards. But he was joking before. He was in the announcer's booth going, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna probably give him a run," but you never know. And Kenny, you know Kenny.
Did he have a good time talking?
Oh, he didn't stop. They had him announce it. He goes, "I didn't know I was gonna have to work here," and then he just took over. And then sure enough, his race was next, and he goes, "You know, guys, I gotta get in my car." He goes, "They pulled it up there already."
We were scanning through the race radios yesterday trying to find drivers to listen to how they were feeling like the conditions were. And every time we would tune into a radio, they'd chatter every once in a while. finally, Bud goes, turn it over to Kenny Wallace. He never shuts up. Sure enough, we tuned it over, and he must have had that mic queued for 3-4 straight laps, just talking about the day and the car. And
Friday night when we showed up at Lakeside, we got there a little late. Some of the heat races were going out, and then I think the first major C we saw go out was one of the first C features. And when you're talking about the talent pool and the modifieds running at Lakeside being impressive, you weren't joking. When I believe it's the 33 of Vanderbeek,
yeah.
Or Vanderbeek. When I see him having to come from a C, I'm like, good Lord, who all's here?
Well, like I said last night, we're sitting there looking, and it was Gustin, Chase Youngins, who finished second the night before. Tim Carrick was in there. I think Charles was in there. I mean, there were just some big names. I'm sitting there, I look at the guy next to me, I go, this is a B? He goes, yeah, and Youngins didn't even make the show, and he ran second the night before.
Look on Friday
Jordan
night.
Grabowski was there, didn't make the show.
He didn't make the show last night?
Jordan Grabowski, probably one of the best drivers around our area in the mod, does not make the show yesterday.
Former national champion.
Remind me on Friday night, who was it that took the white flag at second and fell back to fourth and so didn't make the feature?
Travis Dickies, one of our guys around there. I think he is our SLMR champion again this year for 2 years in a row.
He had the feature locked up, and within one lap, he lost two positions.
I mean, that's just how good the talent is around here. I mean, you can do anything. You cannot quit racing. You got to keep going. And last night, he did the same thing, but the opposite way. So Travis really figured out the second night, and Justin Zeitner was the same way. He was third with about 2 laps to go last night in the B, and just an old veteran got right around him and passed him.
We're talking about our local guys from around within 50 to 100 miles of the Omaha area. And we're talking about them being in the C's and the B's, but what people don't realize is they're running against some of the best out there, and our local guys really held their own down here.
They usually do.
A lot of times you'll hear back home, well, those guys down south, they're really fast, and they know how to get it done, and yada, 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 yada. But then we show up, and, yeah, really? What are you getting it done with? I mean, because we're running right here with you.
Yep.
So they're not just getting it done by showing up?
You ain't going to let that statement...
Let me tell you what, a lot of times Buddy and I don't get to hang out a lot because of our jobs, but we've hung out a lot the last couple of days.
We're going to kill each other.
They're a married couple, let me tell you. I heard it all, too.
Listen, let me just say, Rachel, you are a brave and admirable woman for putting up with him. And I don't have any woman that puts up with me, so I think we're finding out why. But is Lakeside done for the year? Was this their final for the races, or is there opportunities for people to come down and see more?
Correct. This is the last... I mean, every year usually, except last year because of the flood, every year this is like the weekend to go to Lakeside and then jump over to the big track every single week. I mean, it's been like this since Kansas Speedway's been around. So,
well, if you haven't made it down today, you still got an opportunity to get down here and watch the Cup Boys race. 866-460-RACE. You can also pick up your tickets at the gate. There are still some tickets available. We were talking about yesterday for the nationwide race. Pleasantly surprised with the crowd count.
Yeah, actually,
it wasn't packed, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think I would guesstimate probably about, probably 35-40% full.
Well, what's the total capacity in the stands?
Don't quote me on it, but I believe it's 85,000.
If we go 85,000, I mean, yeah, you see in your gaps, but you didn't see big gaps in the crowd. So I was thinking, if you was to take everybody in the stands and kind of bunch them up, you would have. How many did you say?
I would probably say about 35,000.
See, I was thinking 40, 45, just a little bit more. I mean, not much.
We'll take your promoter's number then.
The promoter's number.
Always add a little bit to it.
You take one guy and add 10 to it.
Right.
So 11 guys.
So get down here for the Kansas race. It's going to kick off in just a few hours. And next year, NASCAR announced the October race for Kansas had been moved back up to its regular time. We pushed it back a couple of weeks this year to make sure everything was ready to go for the repave. Now we're going to go back to our regular point, which I believe is third in the chase rather than sixth in the chase. So it's a full weekend. You can come down here and watch practice on Friday. Go watch Lakeside Racing on Friday night. Come back Saturday morning, watch practice, qualifying, and nationwide. Go back to Lakeside, come back on Sunday, and watch Cup, and then go home, and you've got yourself one heck of a weekend of racing.
Absolutely.
Turn 4 is just around the corner. We walked around and talked about you, the fans. What would you like to see changed in the 2013 rulebook? We'll get our opinions and the fans' opinions coming up on the front stretch. This is the front stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is the front stretch on AM 590, brought to you by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
back to it. We're about to wrap it up. This is the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. We are live from Kansas Speedway, and we're walking into Turn 4. It's typically the infield report, but we've thrown the format of the show out the window, and we're just kind of doing this baby live from Kansas Speedway. And I got to tell you, we're 3 turns down. We're into our 4th turn, and there's no wood to knock on right now, but I'm pretty happy with the way we haven't screwed this up.
Well, we got a hell of a kick-ass concert behind us, too, going on.
I tell you what, it's a beautiful atmosphere. Andrew, all of us bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, we're ready to talk about some opinions that fans had for changes in 2013. We're getting down to silly season. We're getting down to the point where NASCAR is going to start talking about what they can do differently. We already saw some changes as far as the qualifying order, getting rid of the top 35. So, Bud, you and I walked around yesterday before the nationwide race and asked a bunch of fans how they felt NASCAR needed to change maybe the way they do racing and maybe some of the rule changes in 2013 to start drawing more fans in. Because we talked to fans, and you looked at the stands last week during the Charlotte race, and it was empty. Now, let's be clear that I believe Charlotte holds about 155,000. So they had about 60% capacity. So there was still about, 100,000 people there? That's a lot of freaking people, but when you've got them in a stadium that holds 155,000, it looks empty. So a lot, and it looks bad. Let's face it, it looks bad. I mean, we saw this with the Omaha, what was the Omaha Royals playing in Rosenblatt. They had respectable numbers for a AAA team, getting about 8,000 people there, but they were sitting in a stadium of 25,000, and so it constantly looked empty. And that's what I think NASCAR is kind of coming up against. They built all these tracks and expanded some of these tracks during the heydays of the 90s and the turn of the 2000s.
And they overbuilt them.
They built them because they needed the seats at that time. Now we've seen a bit of a recession. Everything's kind of slowing down and things are kind of backing up a little bit. And we're seeing some empty seats. So we walked around and talked to fans, and I want to get your guys' opinions, Andrew and Bud, about what the fans said. The first one that we talked to, they were from Wisconsin. I apologize, I forgot the guys' names, and I didn't get a chance to write them down. But one thing they said was more Saturday night racing. I love this idea.
I don't, because really, Sundays to me has always been race day. And I think Saturday with college football, I mean, Sunday is professional football day too, but I think with college football and everybody that goes out and does things, I don't think the average person anymore sits down and watches it on a Saturday night, even when there is a Saturday night race. I think Sunday morning is when you eat your breakfast, you go to church, and NASCAR races on. That's how it is for me. I don't know about everybody else.
Bud?
I see where Andrew's coming from, and one thing we were talking about last night with these fans, these great fans down here at Kansas Speedway, was the high definition TVs nowadays coming out, and I could see last night when we were coming down through here, I could see a little bit of a haze in the air with the bonfires and whatnot, and you don't see that when you're on TV. And Saturday night racing, it's cool, but at the same time, I mean, I see both pros and cons of it.
Okay, well, how about you get to it and tell me what you think?
I would keep it Sunday.
Keep it Sunday. Okay, I'm in favor of more Saturday night racing. I'm in favor of more night racing. And the guys who brought this up said NASCAR comes from the roots of dirt track, where you go racing on Saturday night. So maybe you don't want to impede in that a little bit. You don't want to interrupt people's Saturday night dirt track racing. So what about Sunday night racing, guys?
Okay, that sounds a little better, Sunday night racing.
Actually, that does.
I think NASCAR stumbled into something by accident during the Daytona 500 when it was rain delayed, and they had to go to Monday night, and the ratings were through the roof.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say that.
It was fantastic. I mean, listen, let's face it. You'd mentioned the high definition TVs. I think that is hurting basketball and baseball. Football is untouchable right now. NFL is untouchable. NCAA football is untouchable. But baseball and basketball, frankly, you can get roughly the same experience sitting on your couch, high definition TV, beautiful surround sound system, and you've got the added advantage of the commentaries. I think NASCAR is a bit proof of that, to where they won't get hurt as bad, because there is everything that you can get on your couch. You'll be at the racetrack. You'll get the commentary. You get the MRN broadcast on your receivers. But you get the feeling. I mean, that rumble when cars go flying by, the atmosphere, the fans. there is so much more you're missing out on that just paying for it and watching it on Sunday afternoon, you're not gonna get. So I think that if you move it to Sunday night, maybe you're gonna have problems with fans being able to travel. But I want to see more Saturday. I want to see more night racing because I think it's beautiful. I've got ADD. I love shiny, flashy things. And let's face it, when these cars... What? Tell me you guys don't like seeing these cars under the lights.
Well, here, I agree with you. Maybe we need to see a little bit of more night racing. But instead of Sunday night when everybody's got to go to work Monday morning, what about Friday night when you got the weekend off?
I don't think they'll get the fans. I just don't think so.
It's tough. It's tough because
people have to get off work on Wednesday to get. Yeah, I just don't like that either.
And then, that's a long weekend. Let's imagine if this was a Friday night race, we'd have had to been here Tuesday to start covering it. And the trucks, everybody would have been here Tuesday. It just, I don't like Friday night. I think Saturday night is pushing it for the Cup Series because then that puts Nationwide on Saturday and it puts Truck Series on Thursday night. So, it's something worth exploring, but I like the idea of more night racing. One of them that we don't really have a good solution to, but I think everybody unanimously agrees, we got to get rid of these fuel mileage races.
I think that EFI is really hurting them. Earlier this year we talked about how good it could be and how it could really throw a twist, and I think we've had more this year than ever because I don't think they can test carburetors. You can figure it out when you got a computer running your thing. You know exactly when it's going to be. And I don't like the fuel mileage races. There's been way too many of them this year. And Clip Boyer's the man at them right now. He's won, I think, 2 of them. But,
I disagree with you that EFI is the reason why we're seeing more fuel mileage. I think that they're able to do more and tweak more with the car. We were hearing, I've heard it for the last couple of weeks, and we were hearing it yesterday, how they could basically set these cars up before the race to determine how much horsepower versus how much gas mileage. And I think I'm actually talking my way into proving you right. They're able to set these cars up to basically to where if you're full throttle, you're getting all the horsepower. But if you back that throttle off to say, they could set it at a certain point to where you back it off to 80% throttle, then it begins to kick into better fuel mileage and less horsepower. So they're able to go that longer distance. And they know this. They know that, let's say if you're running at full horsepower, you're getting 4.2 miles per gallon. But if you back off to 80%, your car is going to start to go into economy mode, basically. And that EFI, that ECU, is going to go into economy mode, and you're going to start getting 4.7, 4.8 miles to the gallon. So you could be very well right. But I think NASCAR's, it's not racing when, and we've talked about this last couple of weeks, when so-and-so crosses the start-finish line with a checkered flag, and then 4 seconds later, second place crosses, and then 3 seconds later, third place crosses. And it's just, that's not interesting.
Well, just like you said, with 75 laps to go, they know if they're going to make it or not. They know exactly what they have to do. And when like the car that's running second goes, or like Jimmy Johnson last week, you have to only pedal 3/4 of the time. It's like, that means he isn't even trying for the win. But if he didn't know that information, he's hammered down trying for the win, and then he's going to run out of fuel. Yeah. I think that's more interesting than the guys spread out.
See, I think these guys should be hammering down and really pushing and trying for the win overall. And, and for that reason, I don't really like the mileage racing.
Let's move on to point number 3. We heard from the fans. This is the Front Stretch, live from Kansas Speedway on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio, presented by Joe's Karting and Council Bluffs. Get to Joe's Karting, joeskarting.com. It's karting with a K. You can get yourself some fast-paced white-knuckle racing where the only speed restriction is how fast you are, and both of you are grinning. You know I'm going to do it. I've been hearing it all year long about how slow I am, and I beat both of you in a race there.
He took a Hendricks car. We took a Phoenix Racing car.
Thank you.
And you see what happened.
Thank you.
But I want to bring up the point that at the beginning of the season, Bud, you made the point that it didn't matter what car you were in. Kurt Busch would win would be able to his talent level would bring it up. So both of you should have been able to beat me because of your talent levels. And Joe Kaczynski on Friday night said the same thing. You both ought to be ashamed because you're drivers and I just talk. Uh-oh. We've had our first issue.
Through my headset.
Andrew's going to be going to the hauler here in a minute.
So I've been gloating all the last, 8 days. And Thursday night we went down to Racing with the Stars for Crawford County. And I started on the pole.
Joe's versus pros, you mean?
Sorry, Joe's versus pros were for Crawford County. And I beat all of those guys, too.
Yeah.
I don't care. You guys can tell me I had a great car.
race and snuck up to the pole and took the fastest part.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to the topic at hand,
and put half of them in the wall.
One of the conversations we had was bring more dirt tracking influence into NASCAR. whether this be, we talked about some of the different possibilities. I know we're not going to really mess with the Cup Series much because that's a formula that works. And you know, I do want to clarify, we don't think NASCAR's broken here. We're just offering up some suggestions and opinions on this. But bring more dirt track into it. So one thing we were talking about, and we've heard this rumor, you've been trying to chase it down vigorously all this week and prove yourself right. Right now it is purely rumor and speculation that NASCAR has explored the idea of taking a truck race to a dirt track race twice a year. Something that I think fans are really interested in. They want to see these trucks on a dirt track, not asphalt, a dirt track. And so they've this is what kind of spurred this conversation with some of the fans. If you go to a dirt track race for the truck series, do you throw out the normal qualifying and do you go with a dirt style night where it's heat races, top 3, top 4, transfer up, feature races, and then finally your final feature? That was one thing that they were talking about. You know, we need to mix it up because let's face it, the attendance and
everybody says we all came from dirt. This is how we need to do it again, and I'd really like that because really qualifying would just be boring as heck, and that'd be fun to watch.
Yeah,
it'd be a riot.
And you know, qualifying's got its issues as it is right now on asphalt. That it's really not that interesting. It's not. I mean, it's the stuff we talked about it yesterday. Qualifying trim and race trim, two completely different things. So whoever qualifies on the pole doesn't necessarily mean they've got the best car for the race. It means they've got the best car for qualifying. So I think I would be all up for it, and I'd love to see this. You hear the engines in the background. The Cup boys are getting fired up. They're going to do their a bit of a, well, no, they're not, actually. I was thinking they were practicing at 9 a.m., but that was yesterday. Getting their cars warmed up. They're going to start going through pre-race inspection. You got time to get down here. Still, today, if you're in the Omaha area, you still got time to get down here, get yourself a ticket, and get in the seats and watch some awesome racing today as we get on this repaved and redesigned Kansas Speedway. 866-460-RACE. Or get to the ticket booth and get your tickets today.
I thought that was a derailed train right there coming at me. I go, you've got to be kidding me.
We got just about 5 more minutes left in the show. One of the other opinions, we got 2 more left we want to talk about, and I think this one's going to spur the most conversation. No more Cup drivers down in the Nationwide Series. Thoughts on that, guys?
I'm all for it.
I don't mind. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. Then again, I think it'll kill Nationwide because they don't have enough drivers, I don't think, but... yeah, that'd be all right.
Maybe Nationwide's using the Cup drivers as names to draw interest into the Nationwide when Nationwide should be there to help promote and give seats to the guys that are up-and-comers to the Cup Series, though.
I agree, yeah.
I like the idea of having the Cup guys down there. I think maybe we put a limit on them, similar like we put a limit on how many drivers can be in a race. For the Nationwide, this year it's 43. Next year it's going to be 40. Maybe we put it to the fastest 4 Cup drivers get in. So if there's a 5th or a 6th, but they're not the fastest of the top 4 Cup drivers, then they don't get to race. Maybe then a Nationwide driver steps in and they get to drive that car. So let's just hypothetically, let's say that Joey Logano qualifies the 18, but he qualifies at 25th, and there's 4 other Cup drivers that qualify in front of him. Then a Nationwide driver gets to step into that car and race at 25th. Joey does not.
I really like that idea. I'd like to go one step farther and go, okay, well, how many times are you going to let Joey Logano try to qualify for, you take the top 3, but each driver's only allowed throughout the course of the season.
Yeah.
3 or 4 races, that's it.
The thing I like that having Cup drivers come down, 2 things it does. It adds a little bit more excitement to the Nationwide race, and it brings some added clout to the Nationwide race when you've got the Cup guys coming down. And the other thing it does is it gives guys like Eric Darnell, who we've talked to, it gives guys like Ricky Stenhouse and Cole Witt, it gives those guys experience racing against the higher level. Because we talked about it yesterday, the talent level in the Cup Series to the Nationwide Series, there is a big gap. Let's face it, there is a big gap. The top 5 drivers in Nationwide could easily go up in racing Cup, but 5 on back, it's a large gap between them and the Cup guys. And I think it gives those guys a little bit more experience because they're able to race next to guys who they're so talented that you can trust them, that when they go into a corner, they're not going to get loose and slide up into you. So you're able to race with them, follow their line, and sit next to them during practice and pick their brains a little bit. So I think it's a big advantage to have the Cup guys there, but maybe we do limit it a little bit so that we're giving these nationwide guys an opportunity to come up and race.
Oh, I agree. And it comes back to the old race saying, you're only as good as the competition that you race against. So yeah, let the Cup guys come down, but say, look, we're only going to take the top 3 fastest, but you're only allowed to qualify 4 or 5 times, 3 times, whatever in the year.
Guys, we're running out of time here. We're not going to be able to get to our final opinion. If we do, let's keep it very quickly. Make penalties same for all drivers. This was something that somebody brought up, and I want to use the example of Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch getting fined versus another driver, say Jimmy Johnson. I think you have to take every scenario differently. You can't fine Kyle Busch the same as you would Jimmy Johnson because Kyle Busch has a history.
Yeah,
Jimmy Johnson does not. So you have to take every scenario differently. Bud, do you agree, disagree?
Oh, I would agree with that.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up. We're getting the signal of caution flags out, so we're going to have to wrap it up and pull it into the pits and end this race. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Get to Kansas Speedway today and get your tickets, and you're going to see some awesome racing. Thank you so much for joining us, and we want to say a big thank you to Kansas Speedway for allowing us to set up, take over their area for a little while, and do our show. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.